Hi everyone, Bungo Bob here again. As you've probably seen, we're at Acorn again today. Peg 12, corner peg, and we just started on a top kit plus a short 4 straight in front of us, second shelf, about 3.5 foot deep, just flicking 2 or 3 hard 6mm pellets on it, seeing if there was 1 or 2 carp around. At the start, and I had 1 small tinge on it, and that was it. So straight away we're down to our right hand edge. I'm fishing the edge because a cross on this peg is now, since the work been done, about 20 meters, and I haven't brought a method rod, which does seem to be pretty much the vogue thing down there at the moment. Even if you can reach it with a pole, people are throwing methods. There's a lot of method fishing, a lot of pace fishing. I don't pace fish. I don't particularly like it. I know it does win matches at times, but I don't particularly like it, so I don't tend to do it. And method fishing I will do, but not if I can reach it with a pole. I can't reach across today, and it didn't even cross my mind, to be honest. There are any pegs you can't really reach now, so one of those. Not worried about it. But I'm using the same sort of rig and the same sort of tactics as I would across down the edge to start, because at Acorn, over the years I've found that these carp are so cute. You're pretty much fishing for them like if you can sort of put big roach into your mind, you won't go far wrong. And I don't tend to fish heavy for them. I don't feed heavy for them. I just look to try and get a bite from them in those early hours, first couple of hours especially. So we've gone down the edge to the right, just far enough away from ourselves to get 1 or 2 fish feeding confidently, but not far enough away that we start pushing them out the peg, because peg 11 isn't in, and that isn't always a good thing. If there's somebody else there, generally they'll keep any fish that are there moving between you, if you like, but they can back off in the spaces. I mean, they do this on any snake lake. The angle I've got here, you probably can't see that it's a snake lake, but you probably know if you've seen my videos before. We've had a couple of films down here before on Acorn, and you know that it is a canal-styled lake. So we had a little roach down the side first, then we've caught carp, which is a great sign. Always some stockies and that down here. And always take me time when we fish. As I said, I don't fish particularly heavy. I'm not fishing over heavy elastic. Grey hydro again. Especially when you've got to cleave the pole round in front of you. You don't want great big heavy elastics, because you're just going to pull out a fish or have them boshing on the top and just going nuts, really. So I prefer to do it just nice and carefully. We're just trying to eke 1 or 2 fish out, nice and steady, no rush. Take your time. Last thing you want to be doing is pulling out a fish early. If you pull out a fish early, it's just mentally going to, it's just going to play on your mind. You know, there's a lot of, there's a large mental side to match fishing, I always think, and you know, so just be nice and steady. There's never a rush to build a weight. So the sort of kit I'm fishing down the edge there on these little hard pellets is I actually fish a 0.1 float. Now, I'm not saying it's the right or the wrong thing to do. I'm just telling you what works for me. And I'd like to make it clear, there's by no means do I think I'm the best thing since sliced bread. I don't. No, I make these videos because I want to try and get other people into match fishing. Every year I take at least one individual, somebody new, into sort of fishing, and hopefully they get into course fishing and possibly match fishing, which is brilliant. If they do, I've took one every year, or introduced at least one person every year to fishing for the last 15 years, I reckon. So so these videos really are just for an educational purpose, and hopefully some of you might learn a little something from it, or just enjoy watching somebody fishing a match. I enjoy doing them, that's for sure. I hope you enjoy watching them. So a nice steady little run to start with down the edge, which is, you know, ideal. You can't ask for any more than that at the start, really. Nothing massive, but weight building. So as I was saying, down the edge, I use a 0.1 float. That might sound incredibly light, as I say. It works for me. And these fish, they feel resistance and they reject the bait so fast. You miss so many bites, or you fish so heavy that you just end up getting liners and foul hooking, etc. And that's something you have to be very conscious of here, because when they come in, they will come in numbers, and then they'll disappear just as fast. And when I say numbers, I'm not talking 30 or 40 fish or anything ridiculous coming into your feed, you know, but you'll get 3-4 fish come in, and if they're in the mood, they'll mop up the bait very quickly and be gone. You'll get one of them to touch your line and they'll all be spooked. So my plan always is with this sort of method is to fish that 0.1 float. I'm only fishing 0.16 mainline, it's quite supple, and I fish a sort of 0.12 hook length, and we're back to the 20s again, as you know, the LWGs, PTFE Guru hooks, with a little microband and a hard pellet in it. Now, I tend to feed a cad pot. I mean, any cad pot I do. The Guru ones are quite good. I'm not using the Guru one at the moment, but they're quite good because you've got lots of different lids on them, and that can be really helpful, because sometimes you might be on more of a slope than some of the pegs have got quite a slope in them, and if they got quite a slope, then really you want to be drip feeding those pellets. So you're sort of now and then, you know, fairly constantly, you've got a little drip of pellets going down. So what I tend to do is fill the cad pot with fours, get some fish in the peg, and then I starve them onto the hook. I put sort of 4 to 6 pellets in my cad pot, and I try and feed them. On this occasion, you can see here that the bank's down to me right, so I try and feed those pellets to the left, just slightly down the slope. But it isn't the most sloped of pegs. It's quite a nice little, they are, look, and that one had it before the float went down, so that showed you they were intercepting that bait. I just hung that float there, and he's grabbed it, which is lovely. So you just try and put the float over, drop a few pellets in, hold your float out the water, see if you can get one like I just did then, and if not, then you lower your float in. But you've got to make sure if you can, that your pellet's the highest one in that bank, at the shelf, if you like. Otherwise you're going to get too many liners and you're going to foul hook fish, and then you're just spelling disaster. You're spelling tangled brigs, spooked fish, going nowhere, frustration for yourself. So just nice and steady, a few pellets in there, and if the fish disappear all of a sudden, I can always put a few more pellets in to see if they'll come back. If not, we'll be adding a section and just following them along the bank as they back off. Hence why I didn't go too far originally. So it's just slowed down the side. So we've just gone back out in front where we've been dripping in those 6mm pellets. We'll give that another chance, see if there's any fish there.
Three really, but I'm not going to disturb anyone else. I didn't do anything.
I've done a run before, I got a short 4. You went. You want a short 4, mine later, I got one.
That's really tight, right?
Right, that's right.
You're doing right down that edge, isn't it?
Yeah,
You're winning this bank down
just
there.
left it a little bit down, it's gone a bit slow, but it'd be nice if they come back.
Okay.
So a couple more little tips, fishing down the edge sort of thing, with pellets as we are early, and that's the same principles as across. Is, as you've seen, is just try and sort of gently lift into the bites. It's not always easy because sometimes you're waiting for a bite and it flies under at 100 miles an hour, and because it goes so fast, your reactions generally tend to be, you know, to lift quite fast. But just try and get used to just lifting, and then if you missed a bite, you've only lifted the float out, so you only got to drop the float back in again. Not really looking at anybody, Rob, is anybody bagging, or is it just fishing hard?
We know. Not looking either, really.
No.
Doesn't seem to be great, man.
No. It's gone along to the last couple of hours, isn't it? You always find it's the same as you come in, you think you're going to bag, and it's always the same, isn't it, to that last. Yeah, and also, like I was saying, when you've given them a little bit of a rest, or you've just gone a little bit longer like I have now, and you get on another little run of fish, you want to get it to the point really of, like I said with the feeding, to sort of entice them onto the hook or almost starve them on, but you want to try and get that pole sort of so it's over there, you know, drop your feed in, have the pole over there, but hook a fish sort of in the first 30 seconds or so, and that's ideal. That way you've not got your pole over their heads all the time. The last thing you want to be doing on this style of fishing is sat there waiting, because it's just going to go downhill. You really want to ship out, trip a few pellets in, as I say, lower that float in slowly, see if you can catch one, drop it down, 30 seconds, and then repeat the process. You don't want to be waiting. You've got to be very busy. So now, as you can see, we've just dropped down into another 3.5 foot of water, same as we were doing in front of us, but a little bit further away, and that's in line with where we were up the shelf as well. So we're just seeing if they're in that deeper water. I don't think it is. It's a really warm day, and I think that shallower water, that sort of 2 foot we got down the edge, is ideal, to be honest. But it just gives us somewhere to go to give it another little rest, and put some in the net whilst we're giving it that rest. So they seem to be smaller fish again in that 3.5 foot of water, don't they? Last three been proper little stuff as well. So 2 hours in, we've been following that same process all the way along. It has slowed, you know, there's lots of film cut out here. I mean, this is 2 hours in now, and we've ended up going 14.5 meters to the tree or bush there. And you've probably seen at the start where that bush was, there was actually a shadow there, and a lot of people would have been keen to get straight into that shadow, and you'd have gone 14.5 meters, and then once they backed off, you'd have had nowhere to go. So, like I say, so gone 14.5. Still ticking over, catching a few fish. It has slowed though. It's very bright, as you can see, and very flat. I will admit, I did have a little moan when I drew, because 12's a good peg. It's a corner peg. It's not 9 or 5, you know, but it's a good peg. But generally, there's wind going in there, and typically the wind is going over my sort of right shoulder or into my chest, the way I'm sat round on my box. And yeah, it's sort of blowing out of my corner, typically. But hey, no complaints. There actually is fish here, and we are catching. Again, you can see now I've gone to 14.5 meters, how much handier that softer elastic is as well. You know, if we were any heavier elastic than this, I mean, you'd be finding it hard cleaving that round. Also, there's a fence behind, as you can see, so we've had to break the pole down twice as well. Another reason to have soft elastic is breaking a pole down twice. You don't want to be shipping sections apart when you're using a heavy elastic. You foul hook a fish or anything silly and try and, you know, break your pole down, and you can well break your pole big style. A lot of stockies, mate, but no complaint. Day's fishing, isn't it? See the float going under, always nice. I've had to go right in there now though. Just keep backing off. So I'm quite aware now, at 14.5 metres, I'm thinking to myself, how long really do I want to continue to fish this? Because the island's so far away, the only shallow water we got here is to our edges. Now obviously I've got a nice long edge to my right and a shorter edge to my left, but I've got no other shallow water because I can't get across to the island. So I've primed my edges and now I'm having a little go down there, and while I'm having a go, I've not fed that long line, so I can drop back on there and catch again, because I've sort of rested it. There might be a pellet or two left there for the fish to just come back round, have a little mooch around, or I may just leave it all together. So it depends on how good the edge is going to come yet after I've primed it now. Great news, we have hooked one down there, as you can see. But these sort of things you've got to mold. You know, match fishing is all about decision making. I'm thinking if I stay long, keep feeding them there's no reason for fish to come short. Hence another reason why I've been fishing it feeding it so negatively, or certainly feeding it, you know, frugally and starving them on the hook. I wouldn't say negatively, but some people might look at it like that, but it isn't. It is with a reason, because I don't want those fish to stay long and start backing away too far from me. I want fish to come nice and close. I want to catch them down the edges, because I know that it's so warm, there's a lot of fish in here, and you're going to want, I think, me and Gareth were discussing it earlier, and we both said you want 250 to win this today. But there's no rush in 6 hours to get £250. So better fish down the edge. We'll go into the edge fishing in a minute with a little bit more detail. So we've had one down there. I'm not prepared to go straight back down there again because it's very early. I don't want to mess it up. From fishing down these edges and that, I've had about £80 in 2.5 hours. So I'm quite happy to just sit back now and possibly fish somewhere else to let those edges, you know, start getting fish in, or sit and alternate between those edges. But I don't want to be feeding too much too long now. Still very bright, but the as you can see, the wind is actually dropped quite considerably. They were talking about some weather coming in, so whether that's on its way, not too sure, but I can see some cloud up there, so it could get cloudy as well. Now if it starts getting overcast, I really fancy these edges, especially as the winds drop. So the pegs I fancied the wind are blowing into are going to end up with flat water, the same as me, if it continues, of course. The breeze has come back a little bit again, but it's nowhere near what it was, and it's intermittent now. So yeah, it's getting calmer today. So another one down the edge. I think we probably got knocking on around £90 now. £90. We're about 3 hours in. The breeze has actually turned a bit. You can see a bit now in front of me there. It's blowing sort of into me how I'm sat now, which is a lot better than it was earlier, blowing over me right shoulder. We don't mind it blowing into our bank. So the obligatory perch as usual down the edges. They always seem to sneak in, don't they? So I've skipped a bit of time now. We're about 45 minutes past now, so we've got about 2.25 hours to go. So we're sort of 3 3/4 hours gone, but I've just persevered with this edge. That might sound mad because, as you know, I could have went long and caught fish, but I just don't want to keep feeding them on that long line and keep the fish out of the edges. And we got another one, so it's paid off at the moment. And as you can see, the sun has gone in a little bit. It certainly has gone a little bit darker. So really feeling like that decision's a very good one at the moment. And another reason we're fishing so short down the edges, people are probably wondering, you might be wondering why that is because by fishing shorter down the edge, you don't pull too many fish in at one time. If I went 10 meters down the edge feeding like I am, which we'll get into in a minute, I'd get too many fish in the peg. I don't want that. I want 1 or 2 to come in. I want to hook one of them. Getting 1 or 2 down the edge now, and as I was saying, that's the reason we're fishing short, is just to make sure we don't get too many fish come into the peg. And so that brings me nicely onto feeding, really. I'm using a cad pot, as you've probably noticed there, but it's a bit higher cad pot than I was using with the pellets, and that's because I'm putting ground bait in it. You've probably seen me squeezing some in before I dropped in on that right hand side now. And I'm using a mixture of ground bait, Tom Fix Edge Mix. I always use Tom Fix Edge Mix. I've caught so many fish on that down the edge. I've got so much faith in it. And I will show you a video of mixing that and putting it through a riddle like I do. And I do like to put it through the riddle, but I like to make it really, really damp. I mean, it won't just go through a riddle. You have to really work it through a riddle. But I will show you that sometime. But anyway, so I've got about, and you don't need loads. I've probably got 1.5 kilos of that mixed up. And I've got about 4 pints of micros all soaked up from the night before, that I'm mixing with them. And what I was doing is I was putting sort of a 75% ratio of ground bait to 25% of micros and a few dead maggots down there until I get fish in there. Once I get fish in there, then I try and use 50-50 with pellets and ground bait. And if, even though we're fishing close, if I got too many fish in there, I would cut out the ground bait altogether and actually just cab pot dead maggots and micros, and you'll find you'll catch them a bit cleaner then, and it'll peter out. When it peters out, then you start reintroducing that ground bait again. So it's all about feeling your way in on that feed all the time, and only mix up like 1.5 pints of that mix to put in down the edges as well in the bait box. I've got all my ground bait in my ground bait bowl, as you can see on the left hand side on the floor there, and I got all my 3 pints of, I got a bag of micros under there as well. Don't get much faster than that hooking that one. He wanted that, didn't he? And I got a 3-pint bait tub with micros in as well, and so I'll just mix about 1.5 pints at a time, and then if it's a wrong ratio, I can just chuck it on the grass. The birds will eat. I'll just chuck it on the grass, and I can remix another little ratio that's more fitting. I've had a couple on worms and the obligatory perch, as you've seen, but mostly on maggots today. To be honest, maggots seem to be right. And it's just nice to land on a few fish, really. I had back surgery back in November, so it's been a few months since now, but I had a few months off fishing and sort of came back in the new year, and just having that little bit of time off. I had a bit of time off before the surgery as well, and it's surprising how quickly you get out of it. And so it's took me a little while to catch back up again, or so I feel, you know. Drawing, of course, is always a part of it in conditions, but it's good to be back. I just love it. Just changed my hook length just now, as you've probably seen it. Putting on maggots, you're always able to tell whether that hook is sharp or not, and it was a little bit blunt, and I thought, you know, I don't want to miss too many bites or anything, so I just changed the hook length. And again, by changing that hook length, it just gave that edge a little bit of a break, even if it is for a few seconds. It, you know, as I keep saying, there's no rush on these sort of lakes. These are not really where you smash and grab, you know, massive weight. I mean, although we're having a good weight today, really on those sort of snake lakes, it's all about making that peg last for 6 hours as much as anything. The kit down the edge is the standard again. We're on the Malman's 0.4 Elco. We're not messing about with line on this now. It's 2.0 is the main line. I don't fish the 2.2 I fish other places, not at Acorn. I just fish 2.0, and the hook length is 0.16. I don't see any reason to go any heavier down here. As I say, they are quite fly as it is, but 0.16 down the edge when feeding groundbait, and the time of day where these fish are now looking to feed is not a problem. We're just getting a little bit of that rain they promised for us now. But the good news is that wind we said was dropping actually has dropped, and it's dropped for everybody now, and the sun's gone in, so yeah, brilliant. So as we said in the past, with the past videos and that, it's these matches on commercials are always won and lost in that last sort of 1-2 hours, you know, especially with edges this time of year. And looking around, quite a few people are catching down the edges, same as me. Some of them fishing a little bit longer, some of them fishing just as short. So all about just trying to be methodical now and just keep it going, really. It's been a good fifth hour. The fifth hour has been really, really good. Just think those conditions helped as well a little bit. The sun going in. That little bit of rain is actually quite relieving where it's been so warm today. So just we keep feeding that left line. We've caught 1 or 2 down there, but it hasn't been as good as the right. But obviously there's a lot more room down the right hand side. And I'm just changing the ratios of the feed again now. Putting quite a bit more loose offerings in there now. Not quite so much ground bait. As I was saying about the 50-50 things, probably 50-50 with pellets and ground bait, but quite a few dead maggots in there as well. So that sort of, you know, knocks the ground bait percentage back to probably 40%, which is enough. I haven't found fishing so short that I've had so many fish come in that I've had to go to just micros and maggots, as we were mentioning earlier. That's not been the case at all today. And what you're trying to do really with that cab pot of bait is, when I started, I potted it in sort of 4 or 5 inches away from the boards. You can see the boards there going around the edges. I sort of potted it in 4 or 5 inches away from the boards, and then pulled my float right in tight to the boards. So again, my hook bait, or my hook offering, was the highest thing up the shelf. It's quite a steady slope here, though. You know, I wouldn't say it's flat, but it's certainly close to it. It's running away, you know, a couple of inches over, probably 3 inches. It's running away 3 inches over sort of 18 inches coming out, which is nice. So we've pulled our bait up into the boards and waiting for take, but that's been surprisingly quite slow, and that's normally the way it is. But today it's been more a case of potting in the bait and letting that hook bait go right down where you've potted the bait in. So it's a little bit more like I suppose really you're emulating a method feeder, aren't you? You're emptying that and it's going straight down, nice and inert, hitting the bottom, and your hook bait's going down directly on top of it. And these big fish now are coming up and they're just sucking up that whole cab pot of bait. solid peg, they ain't their nice to put that net in. So the rig we were talking about for down these edges, just to recap, it's that 0.4 Elco. And something else I do every so often, every so many fish and that as well, is just check your depth. It don't hurt, it don't take a few seconds. Just put your hook on the bottom of your top kit. You've marked your depth on your top kit, and just double check that's right. And also just now and then check my stots. I will use stots when I'm down the edges like this, because you just push all the stots down above the hook length. And I'm using, in 2 foot of water today, I'm using a 4-inch hook length, which is fine. If it was probably 12 to 18 inches, I would use a 3-inch hook length, because I want that bulk down even closer to that hook. And plumbing up, I plumb it up so it's just under the body of that Elco, and it's quite a short float, so you're probably about an inch on. And a fair bit of bristle showing, not the whole bristle, it's never the whole bristle, is it? But about half the bristle, because you do find with maggot bites can be quite cute, obviously down the edge this time of day. It's big fish, they're feeding. A lot of the bites are lovely, thunderous, sort of fly under bites. But you do get occasions where you just get very fast little digs, and more often than not you hit them. You lift up on them and they're on. Running into the sort of end of the match, really, it did slow in the 6th hour. It wasn't as prolific as it sort of was in the 5th. I have to admit, the 5th hour was definitely the best hour of the match for me. But we're still ticking over, and they're quality fish. So cracking days fishing, isn't it? As I say, we're running into the last sort of throws of the match now. I know I've got over 200 in the net. Not sure exactly what I got. I have got a little bit confused with my nets, to be honest, as well. I had 4 nets in, 1 for silvers, and I've put the silvers net off to the side and put another carp net in on that and filled those sort of 4. I don't go sort of more than 40 to 45 pound per net, but I filled those, and then I sort of chucked the net down the centre of those 4 nets. I generally leave like a gap so it's easier for netting fish, but I've had to put them in now on the keep net bar. Put one in there and I got a little bit confused as to what net I was using, I have to admit, so we'll have to see where we end up. Just want to thank you all for watching, really appreciate it as always. Quite a long video that for me, but it was quite a bit I wanted to sort of say about this, and straight in bed, mate, honey.